Welcome to Greater Good Radio Hawaii, where leaders inspire leaders. Greater Good Radio Hawaii is dedicated to social entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Evan Leong, and with me is my co-host, Carrie Leong.
Mahalo, Evan. Today's guest is Christine Camp Friedman, founder of the Avalon Development Company, which is a full-service real estate development, consulting, and sales company. She is a board member of Central Pacific Bank, 2004 chairman of the board of the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii, and was co-chairman for Mayor Mufi Hanneman Transition Committee. Please welcome to Greater Good Radio, Christine Camp Friedman. Welcome to our show.
Oh, glad to be here.
So you've been involved in the real estate market for about 20 years now. How did you become interested in this market?
Well, at first when I got started, it was accidental. It was my very first full-time job. But my being in the industry for 20 years is not accidental at all. It was by conscious choice. After the first year, I loved it. I realized that land and development in Hawaii was the industry that I wanted to be in.
What was your first job?
My first job was actually, in those days, they called it a Girl Friday for a developer, an attorney who was doing real estate developments. And a Girl Friday in those days did everything. It was like today's admin assistant. And so I started that when I was attending college. And it turned out to be my full-time job that turned into my first professional job. I got promoted and promoted and promoted. And I worked for him for 5 years. And by the time I left, I was vice president of his development company.
How long did that period take before you became vice president?
3 years.
That was
3
pretty
years.
fast.
That was pretty fast. And I think it's because I enjoyed it so much.
Was that a small company that you were working for?
Right. It was a small company. I think in a corporate structure, it may not have moved as fast. In a small company, your efforts are directly related to results. I mean, there's no one else to blame. So it started out with a two-man office, and by the time I left, we had, others who worked with us. And I had more and more responsibilities. And so the opportunities were much easier to secure in a smaller company.
So what I'm wondering is, how did you dealing with primarily probably older men when you're kind of in your early 20s and a woman?
Well, in the beginning, it was with a lot of deference. I was deferential to anyone who was older because my feeling was that I didn't know, and I was just hungry for knowledge. And everyone who was older than me, who had even a year's more experience, knew more than I, and I could learn from them. So I showed them a lot of respect, and in exchange, they taught me a lot.
So you kind of made them almost like your mentor, in essence, and then instead of having to try to prove yourself as a peer?
Yes, and I think, well, you have to recognize when I started in the career, I was 17. Oh. So, to that extent, it's almost a gimme that it's young. People can see that you're young, and so it was much easier to ask for help and ask them to be my mentors in that sense. Without really asking to them to be my mentors, I just asked for help. And it's so amazing that when you ask, how many people respond. And so I was very lucky to have mentors. Particularly one person was my boss. He really helped me see through what my goals should be and my direction should be. And I was at an impressionable age where I think I wanted to be great so fast and was very impatient. I saw everyone else moving fast, and I felt that I was kind of back in a smaller company with limited opportunities. What he showed me was that with confidence, desire to learn, you could accomplish even more than all the others that are out there, that I could be just as good, if not better. And when he showed me that and shared with me some tools for building confidence, that's when I really started to see my potential.
So how long were you with that company?
5 years.
And what was his feeling when you decided to go on your own and start your own?
It was very unusual because I was recruited. I was recruited by Castle & Cook because they had just secured their largest land entitlement, Mililani Mauka. And it was after 9 years of going after rezoning. So they wanted to build a team very fast and develop it as fast as possible to capture the market. And they were looking for people who were involved in real estate development and happened to find me. I wasn't sure if I wanted to get to a major corporation because I had all these opportunities within a small company. He encouraged me, and he really saw it as a master's degree. He said, you either go to graduate school to get a job in a company like that, in that kind of position, or you think of it as going there to learn as much as possible so that you either decide whether to stay in a corporate environment or become an entrepreneur. But you've got to give it at least 3 to 4 years to know that. I gave myself 5 years because I felt that at that time I had completed 5 years, so I decided to set 5-year goals. 5 years from then, I'll think of this as a graduate school study, learn as much as I can, and 5th year I will go out on my own and become my own developer, like how my boss was. And so I stayed at Castle & Cook for 5 years.
So at 27, you started your own company?
No. At 27, I was recruited by A&B. And if you remember, this was back in 1996. The market tanked, and we were in a very bad real estate cycle. And so I had to set a new goal. And at that point, I was at a crossroads. Either go on my own or look to stay within this corporate environment to learn and move on. And within that, of course, I was very successful within that organization because I acted like an entrepreneur. So I was promoted several times over within Castle & Cook. The 5th year came along, and it was just around 5th year. I think it was 4 years and 8 months, and I was just at that time where I'm starting to think about my 5th year and what will I do. And A&B came to recruit me. It was just amazing. So what I looked at was stay where I am, open my own business, look at the economy, and then look at what opportunities A&B provided. And at that point, what I looked at with A&B was something that Castle & Cook could not provide me. Castle & Cook was primarily a residential developer, the realm that I was in. It's all about master planning, residential, or homes, or master tracts. And A&B was just starting their redevelopment efforts, and it was including resorts, new developments, commercial development, shopping centers, industrial parks. These are things that I haven't done before. And so I thought of it as, okay, yet another 5 years, I will learn as much as I could while I wait out the market, and I'll go out on my own in the 5th year. 4 years and 7 months into working for A&B and having successful career within A&B, I found that the market did pick up, and I was tracking the market, and that's when I realized that this was the time. If I don't do it now, I probably will just stay within the corporate environment. And I had to be true to my dreams and my original path, and my original path that I had set out for myself had always been to be an entrepreneur.
So was it hard to make that transition into running your own business?
Yes and no. Yes, because I had, at that point, had 10 years of corporate backing. All the resources were there. We never had to worry about finding, financing, and I never had to worry about resources, human resources, legal. It's all there. And making the transition into an entrepreneur where you have to ask for help and pay for everything rather than coming within a corporate environment, that was a very hard transition. And some of the people or companies who dealt with you because you were vice president of a major company versus you're an entrepreneur, it was very different. So the transition was where I had worked with these companies for 5 years, and all of a sudden they no longer wanted me as a client or as a business colleague. Was very eye-opening. At the same time, it wasn't very easy. It wasn't very hard because I had set my mind to it and had been saving for 2 years and looking for projects to do. So by the time I had left, I had projects to work on, as well as I had clients who were paying me more than what I was making in my salary. So the transition was fairly easy.
When you were employed, did they know that you were trying to make this transition and what your goals were?
No, but I think one of the reasons why they valued me, in every what they call assessment period, they'd always say that the reason why they valued my judgment and my contribution to the company was because I acted like an entrepreneur. Every one of my reviews, it was all about how they viewed me as an entrepreneur, how it helped the company. So I think they always knew deep down inside that I would be leaving.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more on Greater Good Radio.